Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today, we're going to be interviewing Lonnie and Chris, who are both featured on the show, My 600-Pound Life. Now, before we get into the interview or conversation that we had, I do want to say, we focused on things that were not in the show, so I would really recommend, if you haven't seen the episodes, or at least the highlights, make sure you go watch those. I'll link both of their episodes in the description, or at least clips on YouTube of their episodes, just so you can get a general idea of who these people are. I would really recommend that you kind of know who they are before we go into this interview, because we talk about specifics that happened in their episodes and things that kind of happened behind the scenes, so you might be a little bit confused if you haven't seen those. But I do think, if you don't want to watch those and you know what My 600-Pound Life is, it will still be pretty interesting. I just want to say a huge thank you to Lonnie and Chris for coming on and having this conversation. They reached out to me after I said it in my last video about My 600-Pound Life that I would love to have a conversation with anyone that was on the show. And I really feel like this conversation went incredibly well. I was blown away, as it was happening, just how natural everything felt. Again, huge thanks to Chris and Lonnie. Lonnie's microphone didn't sound super great, and so I apologize for that. Hopefully you can kind of work through it. You can just listen. You don't have to watch. There's really nothing crazy going on the screen. I'll try and put up some clips of their shows. But yeah, I just want to say huge thank you to Chris and Lonnie for coming on the channel and sharing their stories. Make sure you guys go check them out. There will be links in the description for them as well. But without further ado, let's get into this conversation. I talk about these shows, but I try my best to be as respectful as possible, in hopes, honestly, a big part of it is so I can have conversations, right? So, because if I'm just a jerk the whole time, why would you guys want to come on here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going into the first question that I had, whoever wants to answer first, please feel free. But I just wanted to kind of, as far as some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, when you are, how did getting reached out to by 600-Pound Life, how did that work? Did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? Chris, I guess if you want to kind of go first on that one, and then we'll hear Lonnie's story as well.
Yeah, I reached out to them. It was actually my friend was like, hey, you should apply for this, because we were talking about my weight and how bad I was. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be a funny thing. So I wrote up an email, I sent some pictures, and I just sent it in. And it was 7 months later after I did that, I got a call. And then I got an email, and I was like, okay. And then they interviewed me. And it was very fast from there. As soon as they were like, yep, we want you. And right after that, I talked to them, it was within a month. It was just back to back to back. Everything was going.
Interesting. I'm curious, I don't, you guys probably wouldn't know the answer, but I wonder how many people they have reaching out. You know what I mean? Because it's quite 600 pounds. There's not that many people that are that size that are also wanting to change and are going to be wanting to be filmed. So I wonder what, how many people they have kind of reaching out. But what about you, Lonnie?
Actually, my brother was just a fan of the show, and he watched it, and he filled out a thing online, and then when they first reached out, they reached out and they kind of did a brief phone call with him or something like that, and then it was another year before we ever heard anything from him again. And then when he did, I guess, that first pre-interview thing they go through, then they did he brought me up, and then they met me, and I wasn't 600 pounds, so they didn't want me. I was working and mobile. But then the producer, the film producer, when she met us both, she's like, no, y'all are wrong. We need these brothers on here because we haven't shown brothers who like each other. So she's like, these brothers actually like each other, have some struggles, but love one another. We were, and honestly, I think we ended up being a little boring as far as television goes.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I noticed with both of your, all of the episodes really, right? But the stories between, I guess all three of you, right? But both of you that are here, was that you guys are triumphs really for the show, right? Mm-hmm. Chris, I was watching your episode, and I just thought it was really interesting how you reach out to the show because you want to get this surgery, right? And then at some point you kind of decide that you were like, hey, I've lost, however much weight, I forget exactly what it was. And you're like, I don't know if I really want the surgery. Was that Was that a scary decision for you to make and like bring up to Doctor Now? Like, you know, I'm actually good, bro. I don't, you know, I don't need any more help. Like,
Well, it wasn't a specifically my decision.
mm,
So I know, like in Lonnie's video about like insurance costs and debt, and I wanted me to sign up for like Obamacare. I moved from Oklahoma to Texas,
yeah,
so my coverage in Oklahoma couldn't go to Texas, and I wasn't working, and I don't qualify for any help in Texas because I didn't have like a disability, like specifically, because being over 600 pounds is not a disability.
mm,
Like you need to have a whole bunch of other things. So I couldn't afford the surgery, and I didn't want to go into debt for it. I didn't want to fix my future and ruin it at the same time.
mm,
So that was a huge part in not getting it because I couldn't pay for it.
mm.
Um,
Wow.
and when I found that out, I found out that I couldn't get it because of money. That sent me in a very bad direction for about 2 weeks. I stopped doing everything. I ate food, I binged, like it was crazy. And then one night I was just feeling terrible, and I sat up all night thinking about it. And then I woke up the next day and I was like, no, I'm gonna do this on my own.
Hmm.
I'm just going to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And I went back and they were like, well, are you sure you can't change your mind? And I was like, I don't really have an option. I'm not
Hmm.
putting myself in debt.
I feel like I was tricked. That's
Yeah.
the whole point, right, Lonnie? That's what you were saying about, and I do want to ask you this question, Lonnie, about like when it comes to, because like there were people in my comments saying they were confused about like, you know, that you said that you kind of got paid for the show, but you also had to pay for the surgeries. You didn't get paid. Like one thing that I always thought, right, and I think in the comments of that video, a lot of people shared the sentiment was that the minimum thing they're going to do is obviously pay for all of the stuff they're showing on TV. And so was there a time when they let you know like, hey, we're not like, and how does that work, right? Did they let you know we're not going to pay for it, and then this is how that works? Like, I'm just so curious. I assume it's kind of different person by person, but like that genuinely blew my mind that they don't pay for everything, because I just assume that's the minimum that they would do there.
So, and that we'd get a lot of this, well, didn't you read the contract? Well, if you're not a lawyer, you can't actually understand the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So there's a lot of big words, and yes, I read it like twice to see if it made any more sense. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. But the way the producers lead you, because I kept asking, because they kept saying, well, you need to have your insurance, you need to have, and I'm like, well, what happens with what doesn't get covered? They're like, oh, we'll handle all of that. So they just kind of never really answered my question on the money, like at all. And then I found out, like pretty much surgery day, that I'm gonna owe this hospital. I think the first surgery was $10,000.
Oh my gosh, dude!
I was.
That's what you owed?
Yeah. That's not including what my insurance paid.
And I know that you said, sorry to interrupt, but I know that you said you got paid. I'm not going to ask how much exactly, but you got paid per episode.
$1,500. I'll answer it. It's $1,500 per episode.
So that doesn't even cover. So say every episode you did, that still doesn't even cover the first surgery.
No.
That is mind blowing to me. Like that right there was such a bombshell to me, because like I feel, and I'm seeing in the comments other people, they feel like that is the basic, like, of course they do that because they are, like, the way I see it, right, as a content creator, you guys are being used as content. That's what's happening, right? You are being used as content, making this show, producers, network, money. You are the talent, and the talent is kind of getting paid, but then they're like the main thing that they have to do, they have to end up paying for and end up being in debt for. It's just mind blowing to me. It really is mind blowing to me that that's something that's going on.
Yeah, there's a huge part of it too for that, not when I wasn't like on film or anything. It was just a regular appointment, because you do have those. Well, at least I had a couple of them. I went in and I was talking to the person doing the EKG. They put all the things on you. Because I was asking him, I always ask questions like how, if I had insurance, this isn't covered by insurance. Weight loss surgery is not just it covered right away. And he was like, well, you're going to be back in for an ultrasound because they're going to look to see if you have any hernias or anything like that. Because then you go in for a hernia and you get a bypass. That's how that would normally work. But with insurance, there's still deductibles, the stuff that, they wanted me to sign up for, which I did look into. I was like, oh, I'll get this, but I'm very familiar with how insurance works. So I didn't just, pay $300 a month that's what the insurance would have been, just to turn around and have a $5,000 deductible plus anything that wouldn't normally be covered under it.
Yeah, we could spend so much time on this, but I think like for the most part, they don't pay for the things that I think a lot of people would assume. The other thing,
and that's
okay, you go, yeah.
But that's how he said it. They paid for my insurance paid for my hiatal hernia surgery, and he did the bypass while he was in there. That's how that works, because mine did not cover that either.
So it's like so I don't understand insurance too much. I have it, thank God. But like so are you saying that like basically it's like, oh, we're gonna do this surgery and then we also did this? Is that what you're?
Yeah. So a lot of my surgeries were not. So my tummy tuck surgery was my gallbladder surgery. That's how we paid for that one. And my leg surgery was because of my super bad varicose veins. And my insurance paid them $147,000 for my leg surgery. It was 12 hours. It was insane.
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad that
of course I paid all the rest.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I got all the bills attached to them.
That's insane. Well, I mean, honestly, I know I already said this, but you guys both look fantastic. Like and one thing, Lonnie, that I think that you said that I really liked, like I remember watching your video and I was like, I really like this guy because like this type of mentality is something that I feel like people a lot of times they maybe miss, and I think people will appreciate is like, I think you said it in your video. You're like, Dr. Now is a fantastic surgeon and he saved my life, right? But as far as a person, he's not a very good person, something like that, right? And I think that that's really interesting, right? Is like understanding like, yeah, this person in this show, either saved my life or at least put me on a better path or even gave me this position that I'm in now. And I appreciate that. But just because, and this is important, just because someone helps you or something, some whatever helps you doesn't mean, and I really believe this, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to criticize it, right? Not allowed to be like, hey, like, yes, this thing was good for this part, but there was all this other baggage and stuff that happened that was so unnecessary that could have made the experience even better, right? Especially like you both of you have said, like you guys were triumphs on the show. You guys were shown like for the most part good, you guys are doing the right things and still to be treated so poorly, right? It makes me wonder people that look terrible on the show, because there's plenty of people like that, and how they were treated off camera is probably, I can't even imagine it.
I can tell you how, and I think I talked about it in one of my videos, and I feel bad because she's not here to tell her story now, but it was Gina. She filmed for 2 months. I mean, that nutritionist that came in was just a PA. That's all that is.
Well, because technically, to be a nutritionist, you don't need any certifications. They could call anyone a nutritionist. That's crazy, dude.
And so they bought all that food that they put in her cabinets, and like she was just like, I'm not stupid. Chocolate syrup is bad. But they ended up filming her for 2 months and then released the episode. And I heard her sister say in her interview that they didn't that she didn't realize what they were doing to her until voiceover. And that's what a lot of us don't realize what's going on with the story until voiceover.
Yeah, no, because like, yeah, obviously if you watch the show, that's the thing that kind of carries the entire show, right? Or your guys' voiceovers. And like, I can just tell it's so obvious, right? It's like, clearly you're just reading whatever they're putting in front of you. Like a lot of times there's like not much emotion because you're like, I don't have any connection to this. It's like reading a story. It almost seems like it's like reading a story that's not yours, that you're just like, well, I guess this is what they want me to say. I have a question. This is kind of not off topic, but Okay, one thing about, and Chris, they did you dirty, I feel so bad. When they interview y'all, why do they put the cameras on the floor? Why?
Just
Like,
to make it look as grotesque as possible.
I was watching your episode,
Like it
and I was
is.
like, bro, what are they doing? Why would they film from that angle? Like, was there anything, were you thinking about it when they like said, they're like, all right, we're going to film, let me just lay on the ground? Like, what the heck? Like, do you guys not have a tripod? I don't.
Yeah.
Like,
Like, no, we just set the camera on the floor.
So when they're, especially when you're walking forward, they don't ever shoot very high. They either shoot from the waist, and then especially when you're fat, they shoot from the waist and they shoot from the floor.
Yeah.
But these poor camera guys are like on the floor because they also need our feet.
Oh my God.
Jonathan now Zarden is obsessed with feet. He likes to watch people eat heavily and their feet. I don't know what his deal with feet is.
That's the hot take of the whole interview right there. That's what we're figuring out. Okay, so sorry. I was like, I have to say something about this because every time I watch one of the episodes, I'm like, y'all are so messed up for that camera angle. Like, that's crazy. I wouldn't ever film myself from that angle ever. And I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. So I do want to ask, like, is there anything, and I'm kind of putting y'all on the spot here, because we didn't talk about this, but like, is there anything that kind of sticks out to you that you felt like in your first episode, what anything that you filmed that was like so blatantly just fabricated that you're like, I want to set the record straight about how this happened or didn't happen, or this story was completely made up. The reason I want to ask this is because I feel like a lot of, and like I said, I was tricked, right? Like, and so it's so easy to just, obviously you just kind of believe what the show says. So is there anything that kind of sticks out immediately there?
Month 12 not existing. So like I started like the whole thing. So my first doctor's appointment, from then I moved to Texas 2 months after my first doctor's appointment. I moved back from Texas 3 months after that. That was the whole time span of my weight loss and everything there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started, I was technically at 630, but
Okay.
I was so quick to get to it. I lost 10 pounds before I even got to Texas for the first visit. When I left Texas, I was 461 pounds.
Wow.
The end of the episode says I was 368 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
100-pound difference.
They just like made that up.
Well,
Yeah.
John and I, they added 100 pounds to both of us. He was,
That's crazy.
he was 585, and I don't know exactly. I honestly don't remember his numbers. They were so discombobulated. But he weighed 585, and I weighed 516. I know they did me at 612. I think was my first weigh-in.
Mm-hmm. So like, okay, so now I want to ask about like, when did y'all start to kind of realize, oh crap, like I feel like this is, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes, or I feel really uncomfortable. Like, when did you start to notice that? And then were there any steps that you tried to take to like protect yourself, or at least do what you could? Because I know, Lonnie, in your video you talked about how you guys like tried to just ghost them because you were just over it, right? Like, how was, I guess, like, could you explain that from like when you started to notice it to maybe now? And that might be a long story, but
no, it was they called it Act 9, which is just the finale of the episode. That's when you've had all your success, and they pump you up talking about Act 9 from pretty much the get-go, because it's going to be the big triumph, and that's when we're going to get to do some fun stuff and go have a good time. And we were going into surgery, and let's see, I met Dr. Now August 5th. I had surgery November the 19th. And they started talking about, like, in 2 weeks after surgery, we were going to start filming the end of it. And I was like, but I thought this was a year in our life. And, then they started like, we need your mom to come in, and we're not going to tell her what we're going to talk about. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, and I'm like, well, what are we going to talk about? And then, okay, so I should say field producers and field crews are amazing. They are amazing humans who
Oh
do
yeah.
not give two craps about 600-pound life. They are there to, honestly, sometimes I feel like they were our angels. And their jobs were literally on the line. I've seen producers get threatened, like in tears, because their job was being threatened because they couldn't get one of us to do anything. But the producer filled us in, and they had been hounding, like their producers had that, like our AP and upper producers had been hounding my mom because her husband was dying at the time. And like, and that's not figuratively speaking, he was literally dying at the time, and they needed her to come in and shoot this big confrontation scene. And they're poor, and they lived in a trailer in Bridgeport, Texas. And the heat was out, so they promised they'd fix their heat. Well, then she came and did this whole scene it was the scene at the house where we were just talking, and it actually was like, they filmed for 2 hours, and we were still so gullible at the time. We gave it everything. And Jonathan hated it. He absolutely hated it. It wasn't confrontational enough. It wasn't this and that. And so then they started hounding her again, and we had an 18-hour day where we shot like 3 back-to-back doctor's appointments. Lola, they were still screaming at us, trying to get our mom back, and my mom was like, I don't know what more could they want. And they finally said, well, they started throwing dollar amounts at her, and they hit 10,000. I was like, Mom, 10,000 could change your situation right now. And they filmed that stupid "Where is the butter" scene, and it was all scripted and wrote out, and it felt disgusting. And they never fixed her heat. They never paid her the money.
God, dude.
They never did any, and they really made my mom look awful. That's that. I think that is probably, like, all the lies they told John and I think that's the word, because fans believed all of that. They believed, and we actually had a really, really hard time getting to where we were, and they never really showed it. They just made this gross thing about it. I mean, even talking about it now, I'm like, ugh.
No, I mean, like, man, I hated watching that scene because I could tell it was obviously fake, right? And I could also tell that they just made your mom look so bad for, like, no reason, and, like, bad just to be like, who in your head you're watching, like, who acts like that? Exactly. No one does. So don't believe it. Like,
the comments were like, God, their mother just doesn't care at all. And I was like, my mom cares. As a matter of fact, my mom said, it doesn't matter. I'll look however they need me to. She said, I'll look however they need me to look, so you boys can get the help that you need.
Yeah.
And at this point, we weren't really getting help.
Yeah. No,
we were just getting that.
It makes me think about my mom because, like, I've had people I'm not trying to get emotional, but, like, I've had people comment, like, your mom, you know, like, it's her fault that you got to, because I was big when I was younger, right? And I lost weight when I was 20. And so, like, I've had people comment, like, it's your mom's fault. And, like, she's the one that, you know, you should blame her, and it's because she doesn't care about you. And it's like, man, my mom cared about me so much. Like, it was, like, the biggest stress in her life was, like, she used to say that she would walk by my room and look on my bed and just, like, how big I was, right? And she'd just start crying because she felt like she didn't know what to do, and she tried everything, you know? And so, like, I saw that, and it just made me think about my mom, because my mom would do the same exact thing. She'd be like, they can make me look however they want if it helps you, you know? And, like, the thought of people thinking about my mom like that, right? It just made me feel gross, you know? And so
when they wanted her to do the "Where Are They Now," I told them, I said, we're going to cooperate. And we did. We ended up cooperating for the most part. But they were not, and it was not, that was the, filming the first part of the first episode was actually a lot of fun. And until all that happened, and then the "Where Are They Now" was just, it was live. I mean, it was just like the whole, it was just not, it wasn't I don't think it was a good episode. Like
Mm.
I think, yeah, we were triumphant, but there was so much that it didn't do, and it was, but we were absolutely, no, you can't talk. And anytime they brought up our mother, it's like, you want us to walk now? Because
Mm.
and my mom even said, if they need me to do something, I'll do it. And I was like, no, you're not.
Mm.
No.
Yeah.
It was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, and like I think it makes so much sense, right? Like Lonnie, obviously I've heard your story a lot because you know you've made the videos and stuff, and like it makes so much sense why you want to come out and talk about, you know, like the ways the negative ways that you were treated, right? And like to speak out about these things that a lot of people don't know. So like Chris, with you, because you were actually the one that reached out to me, right? And that's how this whole thing got started. So is there anything that kind of sticks out to you that like, or has there been any stories that you've heard from other people that have just made you want to be, you know, a voice for those that are being treated poorly, or even yourself, right? Because I'm just curious as to what made you want to reach out and be like, hey, I want to share my story, or maybe even talk about other people's stories, that people that have been
It
on this
was
show.
it was more of I I don't like to be pushed around to do things, and I seen all the things that they tried to do, the things that they still did, and it was you reviewing Lonnie's TikTok, and you know I watch it and then I see it and I was like, well, I'm gonna reach out. I'm just gonna at least ask because I know like if they wanted me to say the in voiceovers, they're like they would say this, no,
Hmm.
I'll go home right now. You can just cancel the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Like that once you get so far into it and you kind of see things unfolding and how it's going to be, and it's like I just know that people in that position, you weigh that much, you already have low self-esteem, and you think there's this big bright light, you're going to do whatever you want until it gets to the end, and then you're like, wow, you know, why did I do that? And maybe it'll help some of the other cast members who've been on the show, or just help anybody out there because there's you know there's a lot of relatable stuff in
Hmm.
all of it. I mean, even in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And I got lucky. I did everything I possibly could to never say anything negative about myself while I was doing it. Always positive all the time. I made sure that situations could not be created to make it look terrible, and I thought they were still going to make it. I thought it was still going to come out bad because that's what the show does.
Hmm.
And I talked to several different people who were already on the show, and I just kind of knew what was up, and I did my best to try to be positive. And I did initially go on there to get the surgery. That was the whole thing. I was going for the quick fix, you know, and I've learned a lot since then, and I just felt for anybody who's gone through that, who was on the show, anybody who's on the show that might see this or see Lonnie talking about it, or even me talking about it, you know, we're here too. We've gone through it, and I know the show doesn't seem like they tried the same stuff on me because I gave them no choice.
Hmm.
It was I gave them nothing but positive stuff, and they could have turned it around.
Hmm.
They tried. They tried a couple times.
Yeah. I think like that's one thing that people don't realize, like when you're in a position where it just, you know, there's a power imbalance, right? Like there's these people that are saying they can do this for you, and they have, I mean, I thought they had all this money, they'd pay for everything, but apparently that's not happening. But like, you know, they make all these promises, and it's just so easy to want to, for me, even for me, right? It's so easy for me to want to prove to the person I am worthy, right? I'm good enough. Like you didn't waste your time here. You didn't waste your money. Like I'll just do whatever, right? But then it's like I feel like, and you both of you can say if I'm wrong or not, but I feel like it's like once that it's like you give a mouse a cookie, right? You do that one thing at first, and then they're like, okay, well, what about this? And then this, and then it just starts building and building. And I feel like it's so easy to just get out of control where you're like, I don't even, like, what is the story that's being told? I have no idea.
The biggest
You,
realization I found was you think they're there to help, but really it's they come see you once a month to record for a few hours, and then they're gone, and then they come back, and they want to be do was going to do a gym thing, a personal trainer, and I was like, great, so you're getting me a personal trainer, like getting me one I'm going to have for a while. No, all right, I'm not doing that. But we've already got it set up. We've got the gym, everything's all set up. I was like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You show me where he's paid for a couple of months so I can continue to go do this, or I'm not doing it. because I'm here to make myself better, and you're here to record that.
Mm.
And just FYI, they don't pay for any of that stuff. Like all the things that they set up, oh, well, you're going to be on TV. They don't pay for any of that stuff.
Yeah.
There's a whole picnic scene that my cousin is for our Where Are They Now, that my cousins and her team set that whole thing up, and my cousin's a florist and a wedding planner, and she had a friend who does luxury picnics, and they set it all up. They didn't pay a penny for it.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Like, they just say, well, you're going to get to be on TV. Well, are you though?
Mm-hmm.
Are you really?
Yeah. And so, like, speaking about that, right? Like, I'm curious about when the show came out, right? And Lonnie, I know you kind of talked about this a little bit, like you like, I don't want to watch it, but like, did you watch it at least like when it came out? And then like, were there like, did you know, like, I'm just curious of like, do you know anything that's going to happen before the episode comes out? Are they sending you like, hey, this is an idea? Or is it like you watch the episode and you're like,
oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, they keep you very, very in the dark, like to the point where like every once in a while when you're doing voiceover, they'll need you to say something how you said it in the moment. You'll have a producer sitting across from you with her computer, and they won't even show you. They are not even allowed to show you the scene that they are watching because they don't want you to see anything. They don't tell you absolutely. And when you're doing voiceover, you're like, well, what does this pertain to? And they won't tell you anything. And they will absolutely bog down and wait until you say those lines exactly like you need to say them, because they do, and it doesn't work at all because everyone thinks the voiceover sounds like garbage. It's the biggest thing on TV. Like everyone knows that the voiceovers are so bad on that show, but it's because you have people in a room saying stuff that they have no idea why. And usually those rooms are 15 hours long in a quiet hotel room with no air conditioning because they need it to be quiet so it doesn't sound like you're sitting in a room. It's insane. All of it was insane.
So as far as like because I think one thing that I've seen with everyone that I've talked to that's been on the show is like they're like Dr. Now, they're like you only see him when like basically what's filmed, right? Like what like you see him for that one time a month or even less. So like is it frustrating to like for people to be like, Dr. Now did all of this for you when like he did the surgery, I guess, but like when people are like he's doing all of these, like he's counseling you guys and it's clear that he cares so much about you, is that kind of frustrating at all?
So for us, I guess I'm going to say something good about patient care in that respect. We did actually have a lot of off-camera visits. Now, that being said, the doctor now comes in there, sees you for 30 seconds and says, oh, okay, everything's good. And he leaves just like a regular doctor. He ain't your friend. He ain't your little comrade because you're on the show with him. He's just a damn doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that in that respect, and his office staff were great. I didn't have a problem with that part of off the camera, and I had three. He did 3 major surgeries on me, so I had to see him a lot. Just because, I mean, I went every week for 8 weeks when I had my skin removal surgery. So I would have to go see him every week because he cut me in half and put me back together.
Yeah.
So I did. So all his one-liners and stuff you don't see in private. You just see Dr. Now come in and the old little man come in, look at his chart. Okay, anything you need? No. Okay, all right, you look good. Bye. See you in a week. So.
Yeah, that would make sense from like because I had off-camera visits too for like when they were prepping and everything for like surgery, and it just seemed like you're going to a regular doctor. There wasn't anything extra in terms of weight loss. I think there's a lot more that you would do, which I mean, anybody who's lost weight, it's what you put into it. I mean, the surgery is a great tool, but at the end of the day, like I didn't have it, Lonnie did. You still put in all that work.
Yeah,
every ounce of it. I know you did, and
I put in too much work at first.
Yeah.
I had to put on a little bit of weight. The internet tells me all the time that I am too skinny.
That's an issue that always comes up, man. And it honestly, it's a tough one. Like, and this is something I talk about a lot about. I promise I won't get on the soapbox, but like, you know, when you lose a significant amount of weight, it's one of the hardest things to do is when to know when to stop, and like when to know when to put on muscle and start eating not in a deficit, and that's really hard to deal with. So just, you know, Lonnie, just understand that you're not alone in that for sure.
I also suffer highly from body dysmorphia, so I got down to 162 pounds.
Yeah.
And I still saw a 500-pound dude staring at me. And it took me, now I look back on those pictures, because I put on weight. It took me a year and a half to put on 25 pounds because I would panic when I'd gain a pound and I'd stop eating. And so it took me a really, really long time to learn how to actually deal with food, to put on the weight. I put on about 25 pounds in a year and a half, and now I'm starting to actually build some muscle. But every time something fits a little tighter, I have all these emotions. So it's weight loss surgery. Both of y'all had natural. Y'all both have natural, right? So my biggest fear is like stretching my stomach back out, but I also have to eat enough to, like, in the beginning I was like passing out and stuff because I was overly strict. It was too much.
Yeah. And it you know, and I'm sure you've heard this from other people, but I mean, it happens to a lot of people, right? And so, like, you know, I just encourage both of you guys, like, it's a journey. As cheesy as that word is now, it's been overused.
It's a journey, but it's a journey.
It is, right? There really is no end point. Like, it's not even a marathon, right? It's literally just a lifelong thing. And that can sound scary. And like, if I were to say that to someone that's starting at 600 pounds, they'd probably be like, John, I'm leaving. You know what I mean? But it's like, you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy the parts that are enjoyable, if that makes any sense, right? You have to find some enjoyment to make it a lifelong thing. But I did want to ask about, like, so like, it seems that, like, Dr. Now, as far as like a doctor, you guys, like, you felt like he did a fine job. So is it like the producers of the show that seem to be the biggest, like, issue in your minds?
I don't know, if you're fighting back with production in front of Dr. Now, he'll say, just do it. Like, he don't care. Like, he gets real cold real fast. And he can get real like that ugly he gets on camera. It's not fake. So when he gets real ugly, because there was that one day where it was all falling apart, right? That was the first day we had never experienced anything like this in our life. And he was like, it's all worth it, right? You got the surgery, just do it. And I was literally sitting there in the office in tears. Like, I was to my absolute breaking point. And he was just like, just suck it up and do it. And I had to put a smile on because I was triumphant, and they needed to make everybody look triumphant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
just heavy.
Like, it's just such a, it's heavy for sure. And it's such a bummer because I feel like there could be so much good to come out of the show. And I mean, the thing is
this could be a great show.
Yeah.
It could be a great show.
Yeah.
With patient care and maybe some actual health care, mental health care, and actual nutritionists, and actually people who weren't just pushing a deadline. It could be a great show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With actual help, it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I would have. I came out of it in a good and a bad spot. Like, they made it look really great. You know, people be like, well, it made you look like you lost more weight than you did. Why is that bad? Well, why is that bad? Is I started a social platform thinking I was going to end up at a certain point. And then I came out of that, and I was lying about my weight as I was losing weight. I came out at 480 pounds, and I got all the way down to 400. And I was saying I was losing some weight. I was trying to make those numbers match up, and it became overwhelming. Stuff happened in life, and I just stopped doing it. And I maintained that for a while, and I gained like 40 pounds back. And now I'm getting back into it again. Life's finally settled down, and then like this stuff comes up again, and it kind of reminds me of like where I was at and what I need to continue doing again to better myself. But I came out in not a great place, even though it looks like it. It was frustrating, and it felt insurmountable because I wasn't doing it to maintain and lose weight myself. I was trying to catch a weight that they put out there because I happened to be on social media about it.
Yeah, that's that's
We
something I wouldn't have even thought of. That would be
we
so
didn't.
frustrating. Sorry, you go. You go.
Well, no, we didn't. We because all the optics were so weird. John and I actually followed contract, and we decided. I waited an entire year before I finally got fed up with their butts and turned the camera around. I didn't post anything for an entire year after because they really didn't want you to. You could do from like here up, but from here up, I was a totally different person. So I couldn't really. So I really tried to do everything. I don't know why I tried to do everything they said because I like to do what I say I'm going to do because I'm a good person, I guess. But I really tried to do it all and keep it all in and hold the party line and then it just got too bad and I was just like I was struggling like and if you watch through some of my older videos where I just have outbursts about the show, it's because I was struggling with it all because it was just too much to not talk about. And then I'd hear people talk about my brother or my mother in ways that weren't accurate. And I just would blow up all over TikTok. And honestly, I don't even like those videos, but I won't take them down.
Yep.
No, I mean, I can only I can only imagine feeling like people making comments acting like they know what's going on and then like it's like hard to even refute it because it's like what they're saying is so not true that it's like it almost feels silly to like try and argue with them because it's like you're arguing with a fantasy story that they have been told that they believe in, you know? Bizarre, man.
And when they're positive, it's even it can feel even worse. Like I mean, negative is negative, but positive when it's not really the truth. Like there's sometimes I feel like a big scam because there's some people that are commenting on posts that I posted while I was chasing a weight that I didn't have at the time, but nobody knew the difference. How they just peeled 100 pounds off me, it makes no sense. Like even now, I weighed less than I did at the end of the video, and when they're side by side, you can tell. And I weigh more than it says I weighed at the end of the show, which doesn't make any sense.
That's it's just it's putting people in a position that's just so unnecessary and it's just not fair, you know, as silly as that might sound. It's just not fair for anyone, whether it's overly negative or overly positive, because you guys are the ones that have to deal with the ramifications. They don't, right? They're moving on to the next episode and the next episode and the next episode. That's all they care about, right? At least that's what it seems like.
Nobody knows who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Their star, Dr. Now, looks like the amazing, kind, caring, yet tough doctor. That's what they're selling. That's all they're selling. We are not the stars of 600 Pound Life. Dr. Now is the star of 600 Pound Life.
Yeah. No, 100%.
We're guest stars.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
we get 1-2 episodes.
You guys are basically tools. Right? At the end of the day, it's like you guys are tools. You are to be used and, I mean, as terrible as it sounds, like discarded at the end of the day, right? And I think that's I think, and I'm sure, hopefully you guys would agree, like that's the main issue, right? Is that there's not enough care after the show and during, and like the fact that they're not paying for it is crazy to me still, and I cannot get over that, but whatever. But like the issue is just how little care there is. And this is something I've talked about with any of these shows where they, you know, monetize people's weight loss, right? It's like, oh, you know, Biggest Loser, all of these other shows, right? And this has been a thing people have said for a long time is like, take care of the people. Because at the end of the day, Dr. Now is the star, but if y'all weren't there, the show doesn't exist, right? And it's just, I feel like that's so important, and I don't feel like it would be that much of an issue for them to help people out after they've used them, basically, right?
Well, couldn't they just have, I mean, it's very simple to fix some of the problems. They could have a nutritionist on staff They could have psychiatrists on staff that we can access anytime. And yeah, of course we can come in and film with them, but privately we can also come in and utilize these tools. It's not that hard to make this show what it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not that I'm trying to cast the new 600-pound life show, but it would be nice to actually get messages from people who are on 600-pound life now, because I do get people who are still filming or were in last season or whatever, who will message me and like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I get them all the time. Or they reach out to me because they see that I was successful and they're hoping that they are, but then they get to a certain point and they're shocked and they're either not allowed the moment to get any kind of success, because a lot of people don't have we filmed for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Our year in our life was 4 months. Mind you, I wasn't eating for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost, I think in real life, from Dr. Now's from August 5th to November 5th, I lost 135 pounds.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
But I wasn't eating, and he was encouraging it.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
because, oh, good, look, we got someone who's actually going crazy, so let's just dig in.
Yeah, and
I really needed some psychiatry help at that moment, because I couldn't see what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was completely going a different route on eating disorders. I was going from binge overeating addiction to anorexic. I guess that's the one where you don't eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I started the same thing. I is actually, John, you're the one of the big reasons that I didn't keep chasing the weight loss. Is there was a video you made, I mean, you've said it in a lot of videos, is when you start seeing those pounds come off and you keep chasing them,
Mm-hmm.
my filming was for almost 5 months total. Mm-hmm. And it was like the 4th month they caught me off guard and they were like, well, voiceovers. And I was like, that means we're ending this? And I started at 630 and I was down to 461. So I lost all that weight in a 4.5 month span. And I was chasing those numbers,
Mm-hmm.
like chasing them coming off. And the same amount of time it took me to do that, it was like 3 months to lose the next 80 pounds, because then I tapered that off. Like I pushed back from it hard. And that is a big thanks to you, because there was a few videos I just kind of went even deeper into stuff that you talked about and chasing, and I was like, I feel that exact same way. I have to stop doing this, because I felt like it was going to crash. It was just going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I chased it hard because of that.
No, I appreciate that. And I think like one thing I've noticed I've had so many conversations with people that have been in similar positions to us. And it seems like a lot of people, I know for me, I have ADHD terribly, very bad. And I get hyper fixated on things. Right. And so for a long time, my hyper fixation was like, I drummed, I kind of skated, but like food was a big one. Right. And then eventually that shifted to losing weight. But you guys know how hyperfixations can be. You just get like, it's all you think about, right? So all I thought about was how little can I eat? How little can I eat? How much less can I eat, right? And so I ended up struggling with binge eating, like when I was at my lowest, because I was so afraid. Like I just always wanted to see the number go down. So I'd eat little, like 700 calories for a few days, and then I'd binge on thousands of calories, and I'd be like, oh, you're such a terrible person. Now we're not going to eat this next day, and then we're only going to, and then it was just a cycle, right? And so it's you go, yeah.
Oh, so I'm an addict,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter what my fixation is. I'm an addict.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, food being one of my biggest drugs, you can't actually quit food. So I'm an addict. There's plants everywhere. There's little knickknacks everywhere. There are things that I still have to. There are still coping mechanisms all around me,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to be very, even with social media, I have to say, okay, I can't respond to comments today because I will because I have this thing, I've got to respond to everybody, because I don't want them to think that I'm just doing this for money or fame or whatever. I need to make sure that they know I'm a real person. And then I go and I sit on the I sit on my phone for 14 hours responding to comments.
Mm,
And so I have to set boundaries with every single dadgum thing in my life.
yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I totally understand. And like, I think that that really is something that I feel should be looked into a little bit more when it comes to people that struggle with like morbid obesity. And like, and just like the correlation and like the crossroads of like that and like being neurodivergent, right? Like having ADD, ADHD, because like there's just been a lot of people that I've talked to, but that's a whole nother thing. Now, to the last question that I wanted to ask, and it was something, Lonnie, you almost like literally already answered it, but like if you were to talk to someone that is considering getting on the show or is on the show right now, what would you say to that person? Or like what advice would you give? And then, you know, if there's anything else that you want to share, you know, in this video that you want people to know about the show or just in general, please feel free to do that.
Last week, there's a girl who was interviewing with the show. She reached out to me after finding my video, and I said, if there's any other way possible, any other way possible, if you just want to be on TV and that sounds like something fun, then, and she said, well, they were trying to get me to do all this weird stuff, and I was like, oh, I was like, honey, just follow your gut. Like your gut is, and she's like, I just don't think that what they wanted me to do was right because she was because they are, from what I hear from production, like when was in there, they're so far behind on shooting that that's why these episodes are getting filmed in 2 or 3 months or 4 months or whatever. But I told her, I said, don't do it if there's any way possible. Don't do it, and especially if you're already feeling pressured into doing some crazy stuff. I say no. I just flat out tell them no, don't.
Mm.
And I feel bad because I benefited from this so very, very much. And I get a lot of ungrateful, but I do understand that a lot of comments of ungratefulness. But I am so grateful, and I know that I benefited more than a lot of people do from this show. And I'm so grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the experience. And I wouldn't absolutely change any of it for the world, but I'm scared for people on this show that weren't as strong as I was or wasn't as strong as Chris.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely scared for them.
No, and that like that speaks to I think both of y'all's character is like, yeah, I got it good, but even though good, I got it good, but I can see how many times people haven't, or you know, like how terrible people were treated, and so just because maybe I had a quote unquote good experience, I know that that is the outlier, and so just because of that, that not being oh, everyone should do it. Yeah, look how I turned out. I mean, it's great for everyone, right? And I think that speaks to your character, right? And like, just because it was good, again in quotes, for you, you understand it's not going to be like that for everyone, and it usually isn't, right?
Well, usually the really angry episodes are because it was so bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
they were the production shooting people enraged and broken. I hate telling other people's stories, but there was a girl on my season. Her name's Bethany because I'm going to tell the story. Everyone's going to know. She quits the show. She's bawling because they needed her to quit the show. That was the storyline they were telling her. They did her so dirty. And as a matter of fact, the producer that was with her got fired on her front porch because he couldn't get her to do something. And they left him I think he's in Oklahoma.
Oh my God, dude.
Wow.
And it's, I just feel, I wish more people, and you know what, we are still under NDAs and stuff. They could come after us for saying anything. But I don't care anymore because people are getting hurt. People are dying. And a lot of people are like, well, they're not killing people. They didn't make them eat. No, but they're not taking care of them.
I was told when everything started that it was going to be like my story. You know, that's what they were going to be telling. You know, they'll do stuff for TV to make everything fit. And they tried really hard to change my story, change the beginning, the middle. Like they changed a lot of stuff, and I wouldn't have it. I was several occasions I was like, don't call me back. don't air the show. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm not doing it. You can get as mad as you want. I'm not budging. I'm gonna do this regardless, especially once we got to the weight loss, the surgery part. When it was past that, there was nothing that they could do that would make me change how I felt about my story. And when we got to the voiceovers, I had COVID, so mine sounded extra like dull and lame when I was recording because I was locked up in a room by myself doing it.
Okay, so I watched the other day about I watched my Where Are They Now because Shauna Steele did a reaction video to it, and I hadn't watched it since it aired. And they said we shut down for COVID. By the way, Dr. Now believed in the pandemic and did not shut down. They were secretly filming the entire time. When we were filming with them, they were like, take your mask off. We do not want you to know that we're during COVID. They were secretly filming during pandemic. And we were taking masks off and filming without masks because they wanted to not show that. They completely ignored it.
Wow.
I don't know how your Chris experience was, but
it was way past all. It was past all of that, like the crisis portion of it. It was past all of that. I was sick, and they still had their little things they want to do, so they set all the stuff up and called me on my phone, and it was just done from room to room.
Wow. So with that final question, Chris, like what would you tell to someone, right, that was maybe thinking about getting on the show or is on the show right now? And then again, if there's anything that you want to share before we wrap up, please do.
It's very close to what Lonnie said. I mean, if you're doing this, trying to fix your weight, like you are signing up for this show because you think it is your last resort, it is not going to help you. It's not going to take you down the path that you think it is. If you have a very strong will and you're secure enough with yourself to go through some very terrible times and come out on top, it might be for you. But if it's not what you think it is. It's just not even close. I went through and watched all the old episodes of like all the success stories that seem successful, to kind of hype myself up for going to do the show, and I was just not anything that I expected.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I definitely will link all of your guys' social media and stuff down in the description of this video, but thank you guys so much.
Can I say one thing though?
Of course, yes, please.
If you are a former cast member or a current cast member and you're brave enough to tell your story, reach out to us.
Yeah.
Tell your story. Like if the more of us who tell our stories, they can't shut down all of us as ungrateful and horrible.
Yeah.
They can shut down a few of us as ungrateful and horrible, but they can't do us all. So if you're brave enough, come tell your story.
Yeah.
John's gonna listen.
I will. And I'll make a video on it. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.